219. 319. This is Parshat Va'era in the Art Scroll Chumash, page 318 and 319. This is the second Parsha from book of Shemot, of Exodus. In the first Parsha we read about that all the people who came to Egypt with Yaakov passed away, including Yaakov and his 12 sons. And now the new generation is born, as well as the new government, new king, and the history books are rewritten, and nobody mentions Yosef and the influence that the Jewish people had on the Egyptian society, how Jewish people helped save the Egyptians from hunger, famine, poverty is forgotten, and now Egyptians only look at the Jewish people as a danger, as someone who poses a threat of replacing Egyptians themselves and becoming the masters of the land. Whether that is a true fear or just an excuse to hide their true hatred towards the Jewish people. And in fact, that's what some people suggest, that Pharaoh really wasn't concerned that Jewish people will overturn him and they're gonna try to rule the country. He sees they're peaceful people, but he hates them. So he's trying to find an excuse for his populace, for the media, for the world on the outside, not to judge him unfavorably, not to say that he is an anti-Semite. So he tries to find an excuse why he needs to now suppress and oppress the Jewish people. So he finds an excuse that I'm doing it not because I hate the Jews, I'm doing it because I care about the safety of my people, my country. There are too many Jews, they are not like us, they're strange, they have strange habits, and it's dangerous for us. Let's overpower them. How do we know that? How do we know that really Pharaoh's true reason was the hatred for the Jews, not fear for his own life? Because the Torah later is going to say, Ki yadata ki hezidu alehen, because you knew that they acted with zadon. Ki hezidu. Hezidu means to act with intent to do something bad. It's not that he had an excuse to protect himself. He wasn't trying to do anything evil. He just tried to protect himself, and as an outcome, it happened that the Jewish people were subjugated. No. From the beginning, his goal was to subjugate the Jews, not protecting his own country. Ki hezidu alehem. So then, why is Pharaoh making up these funny excuses? Havenit hakmalo, let us outsmart the Jews, because if we're not going to outsmart them, they're going to outsmart us, and they're going to rise up against us. They have so many people. Who is he saying it to? He's only saying it to his nation. That again, we mentioned before that Egyptians, and Pharaoh especially, cared very much about their status, about how they look in the eyes of their own people and how they look in the eyes of other countries. We mentioned that because of this, it was illegal for anyone to exit Egypt. That's why the name of this book, Exodus, is even more significant, because it's from a country that no one ever had Exodus. Not individual, and certainly not a nation. In this respect, it was similar to the Soviet Union, the Iron Curtain. It was forbidden for anyone to leave Russia. And if you leave Russia, before you leave, they train you what to say. That you should only say good things. So in Egypt, it was the same thing. You're not allowed to leave, because if you leave, it's going to look bad. Why would anyone want to leave such a great country? So Pharaoh cared very much about his image, and therefore he said, I cannot just say that the Jews are bad. I cannot just say that I hate the Jews. I have to find an excuse. The Jews are good, but there are too many of them. We have to control their numbers. We have to limit what they do in the country. Not because we hate them, just for our protection. And that is why Hashem was able to punish Pharaoh later. Because Pharaoh was not doing it in self-defense, but rather he had an original intent to hurt the Jews. And we have a promise that all enemies of the Jewish people will be punished just like Pharaoh, and eventually the Jewish people will triumph, and we're not going to have enemies. The opposite, all the non-Jews are going to run after us, to help us, to learn from us, to protect us. And they will, of course, ask forgiveness for everything they did to us until then. So, we read last week about birth of Moshe. Moshe growing up in Pharaoh's palace, and then eventually when he stands up for the Jewish people, and Pharaoh sees that even though he raised him in his palace, but he's still a Jew, Pharaoh wants to kill him. So Moshe runs away. He goes to Midian, he gets married there, he has 2 children. Then God tells him to come back to Egypt. He comes back to Egypt alone. He leaves his 2 sons and a wife in Midian by his father-in-law. And in Egypt, he's together with his brother Aaron. He speaks to the Jewish people. The Jewish people believe him, that he comes from God. And from here, we see that it's not so easy to convince Jewish people that you are a prophet. Unlike the nations of the world who believe the first person who comes out from the desert, they right away believe him and they are ready to die for him. The Jewish people are not so easy to convince. They ask for proofs, they complain, they disobey, they don't want. And Moshe really has to prove to them numerous times that he is the messenger of God. Again, this is to show that he did not just convince them quickly in one day. He was not a great orator that just hypnotized the people. None of that. He had to provide them with clear proofs. And then he came to Pharaoh with Aaron, and they asked that Pharaoh should let the Jewish people go. They did not tell him that Jewish people want to go out of Egypt forever, because that would be too hard for Pharaoh to accept. He was not ready for that. So they just asked for 3 days. And even that, even 3 days was too much for Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, no way. And even though Pharaoh hated the Jews, and even though he said that he was afraid of the Jews, so it seems that it would be beneficial to him to let the Jews go. If you have so many people that you're scared of, why don't you just throw them out and live peacefully? So we see that again that Pharaoh cared so much about his image, and if so many people would leave Egypt, it would look bad on him. Such a large segment of population left. Must be they don't like Egypt. And where did they go? They went to Canaan. Not such a advanced society. Must be that even Canaan is better than Egypt. He cannot handle it. I would rather them stay here and me taking the risk that they might overthrow me rather than undermining my image. And how big was the Jewish population in Egypt? According to some historians, there were more Jews in Egypt than Egyptians themselves. There were more slaves that they had than the masters. Each Egyptian family was able to use many Jews. The government itself had large Jewish force at its disposal. And that explains that Pharaoh's excuse looked real to in people's eyes. Yeah, really, Pharaoh, you're right. There are so many of them, and even though they're peaceful, but if they ever want, they're gonna overrun us. Like we look at Chinese and say, you know, they're far away, and they don't threaten us. But what if they do? Maybe we should already do something before they get such crazy idea, because once they get this idea, it's gonna be too late. There are many more of them than us. How many? 5 or 6 times more than us. So that's what...
Jews were not in the army, the Egyptian army, right? They were just slaves?
They were just slaves.
So they had their own army, right? Out of their own
Egyptians, yes. So now, Pharaoh said, not only I'm not going to let you go for 3 days, but I'm even going to make you work harder. Why work harder? Because by telling me that you would like to go for 3 days and serve your God, it shows that you're thinking about God. That means you're not working enough. You're not busy enough. I'm going to make you more busy so that you should not have a free moment to think about spirituality. And that's what, unfortunately, our world is trying to do. You know, we were in a hotel last week. You come into the elevator and there's a TV in the elevator. And it's funny, why can't a person be for 1 minute without the flow of information into his head? Why not? Now they sell TVs and CD players for the shower, for the bathroom. In the car you have TV. Why can't you just be quiet and think a little bit?
They say it's for pleasure, not for work.
They say it's for pleasure, but really we understand that it's to keep your mind busy so that you should not think about reality. You should not think about life, the meaning of life, your purpose in life, because you might rebel. Who wants you to rebel? Just work, produce for the society, and don't ask extra questions. If you want to think, we're going to give you something to think about. Don't think about your own things. So that's what Pharaoh said. You're lazy, you're not working hard enough, so I'm going to give you more work. So Jewish people complain, they say to Moshe, why did you come? You told us you came to save us, and you made it harder for us. So Moshe complains to Hashem, and Moshe says, why did you send me to save them? You made it harder for them. Now Hashem says to Moshe, don't worry. Now we are in our Parshah. This is just the beginning, and in the end the Jewish people will be saved. And he says to him, I am Hashem, I appeared to your forefathers as El Shaddai. But I did not reveal to them my name Hashem. He tells Moshe that there are different manifestations of Hashem. depending on what Hashem wants to do to the Jewish people, to the world, he uses different aspect of his name. Now, I'm not going to go into it, all the names of Hashem, the differences in the names, but here the famous thing in the beginning of this Parsha is the 4 expressions of redemptions, for which we drink 4 cups on Pesach. We say, Hotzeti, I will take you out from the burdens of Egypt, V'itzalti, and I will save you, I will rescue you from their service, V'ga'alti, and I will redeem you, V'lakachti etchem li le'am, and I will take you for me as a nation. 4 expressions of saving, of redemption. Hotzeti, Hitzalti, Ga'alti, Lakachti. The commentators say that there is a 5th one, and the 5th one is saved for the future. The 5th one, Veheveti etchem el haaretz, I will bring you to the land. This corresponds to the 5th cup of Eliyahu that we pour but we don't drink. We save it for the future. We still await for the final redemption. So, and that's how the redemption from Egypt happened. First, the Jewish people stopped working for Egyptians. After the first plagues, the slavery was cancelled, but the Jewish people were still in Egypt. First, the slavery was lightened up. Then they stopped working. Then they were brought out from Egypt, and then when it says "V'lakachti etchem li le'am," I took you for as my nation. This is when we became the Jewish nation, when we received the Torah. Now, Moshe comes to the Jewish people and he says, don't worry, this is just the beginning. It's going to get better. But the Jewish people don't want to listen anymore. They listened to Moshe once and they got into trouble for it. So it says, but they did not heed Moshe because of shortness of breath and hard work. Kotzer ruach, shortness of breath. When a person is impatient, this expression is used. Short breath. Patience, on the other hand, is called long breath. You're able to breathe peacefully, taking long breaths, then you're patient. When you're impatient, shortness of breath. Now Moshe comes back to Hashem and he says, even the Jews don't take me seriously anymore. And you want me to go to Pharaoh second time and ask him again? How he is going to listen to me? But Hashem says to Moshe and commands them, go, continue your mission, go back to Pharaoh, just do your job. Don't worry. I'm sending you again, not to take the Jewish people out, but just to talk to Pharaoh. And I'm going to give you further instructions as we go on. Now, quickly, the Torah goes through some generations of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, and this is only to tell us where Moshe and Aaron stand as far as their genealogy. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Now, once we mentioned Levi, we spoke about children of Levi. Kehat, Amram, Gershon, Kehat, and Merari. Once we mention Kehat, we mention Amram. Once we mention Amram, we mention Aharon and Moshe. And that's what we need. Because Moshe and Aharon are the main characters, so we need to know exactly where they come from. Now, the Torah tells us that Amram took his aunt Yocheved as a wife, which is surprising because according to the Torah, you're not allowed to marry your aunt. And the answer, of course, is that before the Torah was given, even though our forefathers kept the Torah, but since it was not obligatory, when they saw that this particular situation requires them to go around it, they were permitted to do so. Now, Aharon married Elisheva. So we also hear about Aharon's wife, Elisheva. She is the daughter of Aminadav, and she is from the tribe of Yehuda. And her brother is, so her father is Aminadav, and her brother is Nachshon ben Aminadav. We're going to hear about him by the splitting of the Red Sea, that he is the first one to jump in, Nachshon ben Aminadav. So this was Aharon's brother-in-law. And we meet here Aharon's 4 children, Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, and Itamar. Also we mention Korach here. He's born already. Then we speak about one of the children of Aharon, the more famous one in the future, who's going to become the Kohen Gadol after Aaron, Elazar. He married a daughter of someone, we don't know who that one is, there's a machloket. In the Torah he's called Putiel. So some say this Putiel is Yitro. So Aharon's son becomes Moshe's brother-in-law. Moshe's nephew becomes his brother-in-law according to this version. According to others, Putiel is Yosef. So he marries someone from Yosef's descendants. And Elazar's son is another famous character. His name is Pinchas. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon, who we'll speak about later. Okay. Now, Moshe comes to Hashem and he objects a second time. He says, Hashem, I have sealed lips. How will Pharaoh listen to me? So Hashem replies to Moshe, and he says, I have made you a master over Pharaoh, and Aaron shall be your spokesman. Don't worry, Aaron is going to talk, he's going to be your loudspeaker, and don't feel that you are subservient to Pharaoh, that you are lower than Pharaoh. You are the master of Pharaoh. You can say anything and Pharaoh will obey eventually. Now at this point, Moshe is 80 years old and Aaron is 83 years old. Moshe and Aaron come to Pharaoh, and Aaron throws down the stick and the stick turns into a snake. What happens?
Aaron does better.
Aaron does it. Because remember, when Hashem told Moshe to throw down his stick, it was not in front of Pharaoh. He said, throw your stick down in front of the people, of the Jewish people, as a proof that you are from God. But in front of Pharaoh, Aaron does it. Again, Aaron is the one who speaks to Pharaoh directly. Moshe is on the side telling Aaron what to say. So Pharaoh was not surprised. He called his wise men and he told them, throw your sticks down. They threw their sticks with incantations and they all became snakes. I heard from a friend of mine, 2 friends, one from Africa and one from Haiti, both told me that in their countries people still know how to do it. How to
Make a stick turn into a snake.
turn inanimate objects into animals, or how even to turn people into animals.
What do you mean? A piercing into an animal? How do you do that?
That's what they said. That
Black magic.
black magic. That's what they said, that when you buy an animal on the market, sometimes you bring the animal home and at night it turns back into a person, goes back home. That's how they earn money. They turn their friend into an animal, they sell him on the market, and then the animal comes back to them. And
So animal disappears.
the animal disappears. So this is not something out of this world. It even can happen. According to two of my friends that both come from different countries, they don't know each other, they both claim this to be, and they're both Jewish.
You saw it?
They claim that they grew up with it, yes. It was a normal thing. Okay, so Pharaoh is not surprised.
You could take it like this cup and make it into an animal?
Yeah.
Something like that. They can make it into
Yeah.
an animal. And it's normal for them.
What magicians do.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're
They do
doing.
it, yeah.
The magician today
this is
all-
real
It's
magic.
an illusion.
Right, not illusion, real magic. So Pharaoh says no. So Hashem sends the first plague, blood. the Nile River turns into blood. Even water in the wooden and stone vessels turns into blood.
I saw a video, and like a documentary. This guy that was like 2 hours long or 3 hours long on YouTube, and he shows everything that the plagues, all the plagues. He shows you how they happen in real world, like today. So the Red Sea, I mean the turning of the blood. He showed like some kind of lake, I think it was somewhere where they had like some kind of thing in the ground. This gas came out of the ground and made like the water turn red, like it looked like blood, and all the fish that were living in this lake, they all died and they all floated up into the thing. And he was like saying, look, this is from Exodus, this thing, and it happened. And then the people who touched the water, they all had leprosy on their skin, and he was showing, and then he showed like all the people, and then the gas that came out from the water was also toxic. It killed whoever breathed it in. It could die from the air or something. So he showed like that when everybody died in Egypt, you know, the Makat Bechor, he showed that if the king used to sit on the Bechors used to be on the bottom or something, and the top person who used to sleep was the lower. If you would sleep on the top if you were lower, and if you, so they had the special beds. They were like bunk beds sort of, and they were some were above the ground, some were underneath. They were saying the gas couldn't rise up or something. I don't know, like some. And it was like saying like because of that bed that they had, that's how all the Bechorim got killed, because of the way the beds were set up. That if you were a Behor, you would be sleeping at that level, and then you see the gas and because there were survivors, and it was like a village in Africa or something that they all died, and the ones that survived were the ones that didn't get. They were when they were sleeping, they were above, because it had like at night. It was the exact same thing of these Africans. They had all the Namakot happen to them, like it was, and he explained how like see this happened and that was. And he researched, and then he even found the Pharaoh. He's like, and he researched and he found where the Dead Sea really is. He says it's some it's a swamp. It's not like what you hear the Dead Sea. This is the Dead Sea. Like we have Yam HaMelech, and you know so we think that's the Dead Sea. Yam HaMelech. Everybody thinks it's the Dead Sea.
Why Dead Sea? We're talking about Egypt and the splitting of the Red Sea, not the Dead Sea.
No, but I'm talking about like so he showed like you know when the splitting
The splitting of the Red Sea, the Reed Sea.
Reed seed. So he found it. He says it's not the one that everybody thinks. Everybody thinks it's like this big ocean, and like it's split. And he showed what it was. It was like a swamp. And he showed. He said this has to be there because he even like the where Moses spoke to in Sinai. Like he found Mount Sinai. He found like what he believes everything, and he shows you how he comes up with this. It has to be this one. It has to be this location. And he showed like a water, like that he thinks is the split because he says this ocean splits like every certain like 12 years or something. It splits. He shows like the split because what happens is it has some kind of holes in the ground or something, and all the water goes down, and then it like split. It looks like it's splitting. And he's like, this is like the exit. I mean,
Interesting. We have to look into it to see if it holds water.
yeah.
There's a lot of videos on it.
No, you have to. It's all like the guy's Jewish who made the video, and it's like in little parts. You see, you have to like. It's so long that you have to continue.
Yes.
Like you watch one video and then you go see another video and another.
So this is what happened, that the river turned into blood and all fish died, and the river started to smell. And not only they lost water supply, they also lost all their fish. So now, in order to drink, Egyptians had to dig wells. Only then they could drink.
But Moshe did scare the Pharaoh, saying that I'm going to send the 10 plagues on you, or not? Did he say anything during that conversation where there was exchange of the sticks?
Yes, it says that Moshe had to go to Pharaoh in the morning to the river where Pharaoh was relieving himself, and he said to Pharaoh, Hashem, God of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, send out my people, that they may serve me in the wilderness. But behold, you have not heeded up to now. So says Hashem, through this shall you know that I am Hashem. Behold, with the staff that is in my hand, I shall strike the waters that are in the river, and they shall change to blood. So he went and he warned Pharaoh that this is what's going to happen. And Pharaoh had a chance to change his mind, but he didn't. And then Aharon actually went and he struck the water, and the water turned into blood. Now this lasted for 7 days. Then Moshe again came to Pharaoh and said, send my people. If not, I'm going to bring frogs. So again, Pharaoh refused, and frogs came upon the land of Egypt. And now Pharaoh begs to remove the frogs and promises to send people. This is the first time Pharaoh lies. Moshe prays to Hashem that the frogs should leave, and Hashem makes that the frogs die, and they stink, and the Egyptians pile them up in big piles all over the country, and the whole country stinks. This was because as a punishment that not only they left peacefully, but the Egyptians were not even able to eat them. They were spoiled, and the further plague, the plague continued after that they had to smell all this, and then to bury all the carcasses. Now, Pharaoh doesn't keep his promise. He doesn't let the Jewish people go. Now, once he breaks his promise, there is no warning. Hashem sends the third plague, that all the dust of Egypt turns into lice. And now finally, the sorcerers admit divine origin of the plague. And they say, it is a finger of God. So Hashem says to them, that was just one finger. I still have another few fingers. So if you don't give up, I'm going to send my other plagues. So Pharaoh doesn't give up yet. So the fourth plague comes. This time it's the swarm of wild beasts. And again, Pharaoh is warned. Hashem gives him another chance. Moshe comes to him and says, if you don't let the Jewish people go, the next plague, and he tells him exactly what the plague is going to be, that Pharaoh shouldn't say you didn't tell me. It's going to be a swarm of wild beasts. And that's what happened.
So how they don't like laces and wild beasts and these frogs? They would also cause a lot of trouble to the Jewish people, right? Who lived
No,
with
the Jewish people were never affected by these plagues.
the smell, for example, of the decomposing frogs.
The Jewish people lived in a separate area called Goshen, and that was not affected. The Egyptians had it, the Jewish people not.
Okay.
Also the water, they weren't affected, they had water. And the Egyptians, they wanted to buy the water from the Jews. So, because, you know, and if they gave it to them, let's say the Jewish person would give them the water, they would turn right away to blood. But if they would buy it, then it would stay as water. So they would buy from the Jews water.
Okay.
There's a midrash on it.
Yes. Now, the fourth plague is the severe swarm of wild beasts came to the house of Pharaoh and to the house of his servants. And the land was being ruined because of the swarm. Now, these wild animals would eat domesticated animals, they would bite and eat people. So it was dangerous. So Pharaoh gives in and he says, okay, I will allow you to serve your God in Egypt. But Moshe refuses. He says, Pharaoh, your people they all worship animals. And we're gonna kill animals for our God. That's not gonna be nice. And plus, your people are not gonna let us. He says, we have to go in the wilderness and we have to go out for 3 days. So Pharaoh says, okay, I will send you. Just don't go too far and also pray for me. Don't forget me in your prayers. So Moshe prays to Hashem, and Hashem removes the wild beasts. But again, Pharaoh doesn't keep his promise. Now the fifth plague, epidemic. So Hashem again sends Moshe to warn Pharaoh. And this epidemic comes on the domesticated animals. And all the livestock of Egypt died. Those domesticated animals that were not eaten up by wild animals, they died in this plague. Pharaoh is still stubborn. Now the sixth plague.
Rabbi, do we have an idea how long it takes between the plagues? Is it like years
Yes.
passing by or
No,
weeks?
it says that
7 days.
About weeks.
it says that each plague took about a month.
Okay, so it's all.
The plague itself took 7 days, and there was a resting period
3 weeks.
of 3 weeks between plagues. So all the plagues took about a year, like it took about 10 months. From the moment Moshe came until they left, it was all within the same year about. So the sixth plague comes without a warning. And by the way, each plague there is a lot to talk about. Now we're just doing a brief summary. The reason for the plague, the order of plagues, how they came about, where there was a warning, where there was no warning, where the warning was by the river, where the warning was by the palace. Each detail has a meaning.
I'm surprised Pharaoh never thought of killing Moshe. Why? He wouldn't just kill. Right? He was coming to him every time for 10 times. Wouldn't be he's so upset and would just make an order to.
Yes. It is surprising. both Moshe and Aaron come from the tribe of Levi. And the tribe of Levi, it was known in Egypt that they are priestly tribe, and there was a rule in Egypt that anyone who was dedicated to service of their God, of their religion, the government had no control over. They didn't have to do government duties, they didn't have to pay taxes, the opposite. They would receive subsidy, they would receive a payment from the government. So Egyptian priests, the idol worshipping priests, had this privilege, and the tribe of Levi had this privilege. So it's possible because of that they had like immunity.
Untouchable, yeah.
So now Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron, take handfuls of furnace soot, the ash from the furnace, and let Moshe hurl it heavenward before Pharaoh's eyes, and it will become as boils erupting into blisters on man and beast. That people and animals had blisters and boils on their skin. Now the seventh plague comes, and this is hail. And there is a warning that everybody should go inside the house. All the animals should be brought indoors, and whoever among people and animals stays outside will be killed. And that's what happened. Whoever listened to Moshe, they went indoors and they brought their animals. Whoever did not listen, they left their animals outside, and they left their slaves outside, and all of them were killed. As well as all their crops, trees were damaged by the hail.
Slaves were also killed?
Yeah, the Egyptian slaves, not the Jewish people. So there was a thunder and hail, and fire went earthward. And there was a hail and fire flaming amid the hail. Everything that was in a field, from man to beast, all the grass of the field, the hail struck, and every tree of the field it smashed. Pharaoh admits his guilt and begs for hail to stop, and promises again to send out people. Pharaoh said, "This time I have sinned. Hashem is the righteous one, and I and my people are the wicked ones. Pray to Hashem that he should stop the thunder and hail, and I shall send you out." And Moshe says to him, "I know that you're not yet afraid of Hashem. You just want it to stop, but you're not going to listen." But Moshe still prays to Hashem. The hail stops, and Pharaoh saw that the rain, the hail, and the thunder ceased, and he continued to sin. And he made his heart stubborn, and he did not send out the children of Israel. That's how the Parsha finishes. So the first 7 plagues are in this week's Parsha. The last 3 plagues are in the next week's Parsha. Next week's Parsha is a very heavy Parsha. It has a lot of mitzvot. That's when we start learning about mitzvot. It has the plagues. And maybe if we have a chance, we'll summarize all the plagues, and we'll show the meaning and differences between the plagues. So we stop on page 339.
Thank you very much.
Parsha.
Thank you.